Welcome back to Champion News Talk Radio, brought to you by championnews.net. This is Carol Parisi with Jack Roeser and Rick Newton, and we are talking about tea parties, politics, principals, non-parties. We left it with primaries, principals versus party. During the break, we were talking a little bit about teachers' unions. So, Rick, I'm going to throw the ball to you, and let's talk a little bit about principals versus party, and then you were talking about your local school board election, so that'll get us right back to.
Okay, so when I went to my first school board meeting, and I'm not proud to say that, my focus has been at other levels, but when I saw who ran, the candidates running for the school board, 6 candidates, they were all liberal, I knew we were in trouble. And so when I went to the first meeting, I looked up behind the board, and behind the board was a plaque, and the plaque was their mission statement. And their mission statement said, U46 will be a great place for all students to learn, all teachers to teach, and employees to work. And it struck me. What town
is that?
This is U46, Elgin. Elgin, Wayne, Streamwood, Hanover.
Big district.
Second biggest in the state. And what struck me, aside from the fact that it was it almost looked like something that they assigned to one of their 3rd grade classes to write it. I mean, it was a very trite statement. But what was glaring about it was the fact that it talked about the students. It didn't define anything about how they're going to serve the students. It talked about the teachers and talked about the non-teaching employees. It did not talk about the primary stakeholder in the equation, which is the taxpayer and the parent. And it led me to really question, how do they see us? And they really do, I believe, see the parents. They talk about parents and working with the kids in terms of curriculum, but not their influence on the curriculum and the policies within the school district.
I've lobbied downstate on the primary and secondary commissions of the legislators down there, and I found it a surprising fact is that they think that the responsibility for the education of those children is in their hands, that they are the determinants of what is to be done with them. They don't recognize that a Supreme Court decision said that the one that's responsible for the education of a child is the parent. These people, our taxpayers are paying, are our employees. And they should be doing what we want done, not what they think they want done. And the last thing that we should have is some stinking, big, powerful union deciding exactly how it's all going to do. The union is of employees, but they've made themselves into managers. Are we nuts letting the employees manage the business? Why are we paying these big salaries, $200,000 a year, up to $300,000 to the people that run these school districts? Those guys are nothing but smiling bureaucrats themselves.
The number of
parents
people
aren't being listened to about how these children should be inculcated with something that'll be useful in earning a living and will represent real American ideals as well. They aren't bringing up citizens. They're bringing up little people that are uninformed on arithmetic, reading, got a bunch of stuff thrown at them about the environment. What do they need that for? They need to do arithmetic. And I'll tell you, as a businessman, we test employees, and most of them cannot pass a 5th grade arithmetic test.
Oh my God.
It's pathetic.
To your last point, Jack, it can. One of the things I saw, and I made it real clear to them in the 3 minutes I had to speak, was that it can be very mind-numbing for some of the students. And so their focus, for example, all of these candidates in their campaigns talked about the importance of closing the achievement gap. And so I asked about it at a forum, a candidate forum, and their intent is to up the performance of the lower end students, which is not a bad thing. But my point to them was, in doing so, and if you're diverting resources, which they admitted they were, to the lower performing students, what's happening to the middle students, to the upper end students?
Yeah.
The focus should not be on closing the gap. It should be optimizing the learning experience, moving everybody forward.
The real problem with the system, actually, I've been involved with St. Elizabeth's in the city. Those children come from a very tough neighborhood and no money at all. And for 1/3 what the city spends, they're getting a good education. And what they will tell you and my long life of hanging around school districts, I think it's true. The real problem is in the first 3 grades. If you don't teach the children a love of reading and how to do arithmetic and how to be slightly disciplined in their actions, if you don't teach that to them, they aren't going to get much out of it, especially the boys that are unruly anyway. You ladies generally tend yourself better. But you're going to teach the boys that school is only going to make them feel stupid and ignorant, and they're really not going to get much out of the rest of it. Those first 3 grades, how the twig is inclined, so does the mighty oak grow. And you've got to give them a good basic education right at the bottom. If you ever look at a McGuffey reader of 100 years ago, listen, the kids in 4th grade couldn't answer the questions at the end of a chapter in a McGuffey first reader. There are very low standards for real learning that are expected of the children. And St. Elizabeth has got a lot of kids there from poverty-stricken areas and very little from the home, but they are learning a lot in that school. They are an example of how the public schools should attend themselves.
They had one budgetary item at that meeting that they talked about, and it had to do with paving some new parking lots. And the question that came up from the board, the question that came up had to do with, did you have a process for minority contractors?
Well, you know what? There is definitely a lot of work that we're going to have to do, and I'm looking forward to discussing some of the little action steps that we can be taking as a grassroots, as good patriots.
You know, they want to blame the parents for this education, but it's the teachers, the professionals, that should take the blame.